Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Business from the Bass Boat Podcast, powered by X2 Power. And guys, today we've got a great show lined up. Still in the temporary studio, kind of debating on what to do in this place as far as studio goes. So bear with me. Background's just a plain white wall for those of you on YouTube. So apologize there. It's been real busy moving here to Idaho. But today's show is one that Andy and I have done the last couple of years as Andy has really built his guide service. It's been really cool to watch over the last 3 years. This will be the third year update on how he's built this guide service for trophy smallmouth on the Great Lakes and specifically on Lake Erie there. But it's been cool to see because he left his banking job to do this and that whole thing. And that's really what Business with the Bass Boat's all about. It's kind of doing something that you're passionate about in a business fashion, right? So without further ado, let's bring Andy on. What's going on, man?
Oh, not a whole lot. Checking out some A-rigs I just got in the mail and making sure they're actually straight before I bend them out. Tackle tinkering is always.
Which A-rig is that? Look at the chartreuse on that thing.
Brown Dog. They're out of like Oneida Lake area here in New York, and they're not cheap. They're $33 a piece.
Look at how stout that thing is. Look at those wires.
But yeah, this thing will last you about 100 smallmouth on average for me, as compared to like a Flash Mob Junior will go through. If you get a 5-pounder, there's a good chance that it's going to break. But he just released, hold on, let's see if I can find it here. This one, he just released a flare one, which I don't know when he released it, but I picked it up because the other one's really stout, but like these ones are a lot more flimsy.
Are they narrower wire?
Yeah, like just slightly thinner gauged wire. It looks like not by much, but apparently, yeah, you can. It's real vibrate. It vibrates really well. So this one's gonna be fun. It'll probably last as long as a Flash Mob Junior, though. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
Right. Well, one thing I didn't bring up in the intro too, if you guys haven't, Andy pretty much runs entirely our Lure Lab show on the Serious Angler Network, and it is just a tinker in literally what his truest form right here, tinkering with tackle as we're on a show here.
I should like move the camera down here. I have all of this tackle on the floor. I just got it from Omnia that I have to go through and sort too. So figure out what worms are straight and which ones need to be left out to get them straight again, and all the good stuff.
Okay, so when you're doing that, you're saying if you got worms that have a bent tail, how are you getting them straight again?
Sometimes it's just figuring it out and laying them on like the table. So hold on, let me grab one real fast.
Okay.
So for example, right, like I have these Great Lakes, what are these? Drop minnows. Yep. And every once in a while you'll get one that's curly.
Sure.
Like it's not straight. It'll be like bent over. Like I'll try to find a way. So these ones have a flat top to them. So I'll try to lay them on a table like so to get that tail straight again. It'll eventually mold back into place.
Okay, so it's just letting it sit there for like what, a couple days, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Couple days, couple hours, depends on how bad it is. But you can get them to go back straight. But it all depends on the bait too.
Gotcha.
But I found with these specifically, if that tail is warped at all, they won't get bit. So you need them perfect straight. And then when you rig it, you have to be very careful when you rig it. Because it's so small, it's easy to rig it off by like a degree, and as it goes down, it'll spiral and do all kinds of weird things, and they won't eat it. So it's a pain, but they work.
Yeah, that's good to know. And I always, that's something, especially with that, and that bait's not as bad. But like the Elastec stuff, like it's hard to get that thing, especially when you're using a 2 3/4 inch bait. On a jig head or something, just to get it so straight.
Yeah, what I found is almost marking it, like tearing it a little bit with your hook on the top.
Okay.
And then when you rig it almost kind of short of where you normally would, because you're going to pull and snap it onto your jig head anyways, and that helps make it a little straighter.
Got it.
Rig it as deep as normal, because if you go deeper, all of a sudden it'll be like bent off in a 45 one way, and you're like, why isn't it straight? And you can't get it straight to save your life after that.
Right. Once you have it there, you're kind of done. Yeah.
So, Well, enough with the tackle tinkering.
Yeah, that's a lure lab topic. But man, I know we just had our fantasy fishing show. I know today we've been watching some of the St. Lawrence beatdown, absolute beatdown going on there. So fun to watch. But you also had a derby last night and got the big dub, man.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I don't know if I would call it a huge dub, but I mean, basically, like I fish a Wednesday night series to get into the jackpot tournament, so they withhold part of the proceeds from every tournament to like a big payout at the end of the year.
right,
And it's like one of the few tournaments that I fished on Erie that I've yet to win. Like there's a Canadian Tire, which is a tournament I fished in October, and I've fished it 3 times now. I've been close once to a victory, came in 5th. And then this one, I've had 2 bridesmaids, 2 seconds for the jackpot, and all the money goes to the winner. And then second place is like $200. So first place, I think last year was like $3,900.
heck yeah.
So we're getting ready for that. But we won the tournament. It's like literally the 20 of the best sticks on Lake Erie every Wednesday go out on the lake. And it's a 3-fish limit. And if you don't have 14 pounds for 3, you almost don't have a chance at winning.
Jeez.
And you have 3 hours, and like sometimes you're making a 40-minute run to catch 3 fish and come
Yeah.
back. And you're like, I just burned more gas to do this tournament that I'm gonna win. But like at the end of the day, you just want to see the W next to your name. So
Yeah,
if you're
exactly.
going out, you might as well go for it. So
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's hilarious to me in tournament fishing how much we spend to get a win in a club tournament. And it's like, man, I'm gonna go run however many miles away. And it's just like the numbers don't work, but the pride of winning is exactly what we're looking
yeah,
for.
absolutely. And I mean, it's fun. Like it's not even like bragging rights. It's just fun to go out there and be like, yeah, I can hang with these guys. Even
Yeah,
though like I should be able to like being a guide out there, but still like there's guys out there that have 20, 25, 30 years of experience on the lake. And the first like 8 tournaments of the year, it's like, I know if I can catch 16 pounds, I'm gonna have a shot. But I know this group of guys is going to catch 14. This group of guys is going to catch 14. It's like I got to get at least 14 and a half to get paid. In the
yeah,
first like 4 or 5 tournaments, I think I finished 3rd once, and the rest of them finished like 5th and 6th with like 13 and a half.
for
And it's
3
like
fish.
it's like what the heck?
That's
But
insane, dude.
but as this time of year comes, it's my favorite because a lot of people start to struggle because the fish gets so deep and they're so much harder to catch. And I love
Right.
it when it gets grimy. And I've learned some tricks over the years. And that's why you book a guide trip, is to learn those tricks to get a few extra fish in the boat. So
Exactly. Well, dude, I think that is what's cool about your guide service. And I know we've talked about this. You really try and cater to the trophy smallmouth guys. Like, don't get me wrong, you'll have a client that really is wanting to catch fish. You'll accommodate that, but your target market from our conversations, right, are folks who are trying to learn that edge to go catch a really big fish of a lifetime on Lake Erie,
yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
I mean,
And
that's
it's
just such a neat deal to me. I mean, I guess talk a little bit about how that's I mean, that's also a grind to go and find those fish. You're not just going to try and catch just a couple.
so I was explaining it to my tournament partner earlier, like day or two ago, and I'm like, you realize I put as many hours on my outboard as like an Elite Series pro does in a year.
Right.
Like I've had my boat since September 8th. It is now August 24th. And we have 4 months out of the year I can't use it, right? December through March. So
Okay.
4 months. I have 196 hours on my motor right now.
Heck yeah.
Like
Just
an
throwing
Elite
down some
Series Pro
hours.
puts what 200 to 300 on their boat a year,
Right.
and they fish 5 months.
Yeah. At
And
least.
right now I have September, October. I put it away in November. So really, I've had out 7 months. So that's what a 30-hour average per month of just
Yeah.
idling and fishing. And I've basically hardly fished in July and August. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. So yeah, a lot of hours into things. And you've also diversified pretty well just with like, I know this is kind of your trophy chasing time coming into this fall, but it's also just the weather can be so unpredictable and you can only get a certain amount of days. So then it kind of rolls into your steelhead season
Yeah.
in your off season, quote unquote there. But I mean, what if folks are coming this time of the year, what are you doing? Are you fishing real deep right now? What's kind of happening on Lake Erie in August, late August?
So late August through about 3/4 of the way through September, depending on water temps, we're targeting like 35 to 50 foot of water. We're targeting like main lake ledge drops with big
Okay.
rock, big isolated rock. And that's where forward facing comes in. And I try to teach the best of my ability. Like if people want to learn, I can really dive into it. But like a lot of guys just come out and stand next to me and we fish together. And I'm like, take a shot at that rock. Like you catch them. Like I fish along with a lot of my clients, but I'm not trying to catch them. I'll experiment and do wonky things. I'm putting the baits in their hands to get them to catch bigger fish. And I think what differentiates me the most from like a lot of the other guides in the area and smallmouth guides in general is I'm artificial only. I don't drag crawfish and shiners. I don't drift for 8 miles and just pull bait. We're fishing it in a tournament style. And we might only catch 5 fish in a day, but we're going to try to catch 5 giants.
Yeah.
And August is 4.5 or bigger is the goal.
Okay. And that's the whole thing. I mean, it's artificial only, and it's guys who, I mean, realistically, if you're listening to this show and some of these podcasts that we have on our network, it is guys like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's your target audience, someone who wants to come up, learn how to smallmouth fish that maybe has never done it. And I think um the learning aspect to me that you get with paying for a guide, right, is like the 10,000 hours that you've had behind
Yeah.
that
It's
process.
the why is the fish here. Like I can tell you why that fish is there. And
Right.
I understand like the movement. I can't say I'm the best at it. There's definitely people that are better at knowing how the movements of the fish, but I think I have a pretty sound understanding of like their seasonal patterns and
Right.
where they're going and why. And that's what you're paying for in a guide is to learn why what is happening, not just going out to catch fish.
Totally.
So
Totally. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, I think that's what people need to realize when they're paying for a guide trip. But how has it been for you? I mean, we're 3 years in now. This
mhm.
has been just like it's been cool to watch your journey with the podcast and the guide service and everything here, man. And now, are you to a point where you can breathe a little bit? Like, are clients repeating, a couple of
Yeah.
years in a row now? Is it still just like, man, I'm searching for new business? What is your like outlook right now, I guess, business wise?
So the big thing is you're always looking for new business because with the state of the economy, right? Maybe the same guy is going to come or same group of people or females aren't going to come multiple times in a year. They might not come. Them clients that I had that were coming every year, and I have a couple now that are saying they're going to come every other year because they don't know how the budget is going to align and stuff. So you're always looking for new clients. But if I could break it down like in simple layman's terms, probably like 80% of my clients have come from the podcast and like
Wow.
5% are local and 10 to 15% are referrals. And
Yeah.
then like 2 to 5% are just random finds and like, hey, I want to go with the guy that's artificial only who runs a bass boat.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty cool. The power of the podcast to say that
Yeah.
80% come from.
Uh, It's at least 75, but I would be sure that it's closer to 80. Like my
Wow.
first 2 years, like almost every single client I had came from the podcast. And now I could probably almost say that they're all from the podcast because all my referrals are coming from people who have listened to Serious Angler.
Sure. Sure.
So, and I'm
That's
sure they're
awesome.
now listening to the podcast as well. So it's a
Yeah.
nice big circle.
Yeah, big circle, and that's what we're trying to build here. So that's fantastic to hear, and I mean, I know you set it up to where up there you have such a specific window, right? Where it's like go, 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 go. And then there's like your off season. And obviously we talked about steelhead stuff some, but like I mean, when it's go time, what are your busiest months are, I mean, April, right? Is kind of when
Yep.
things really start rolling. and then
About the
you'll go
third week of April till about the third or fourth weekend of June. So I get
okay.
like a 2.5 month period where I'd literally try to book every single day because I don't want to be out there. I'm not saying the fishing's bad. The fishing gets more difficult in July and August. So I'd rather have clients come when the fishing is really good as opposed to just good.
Yeah.
And then right about depends on water temp. Usually right around like August, Labor Day weekend is when we see that shift back into where fish will get in like that early fall transition. And if you know where to look, you can really start to find them grouped up. Like 2 days ago on a guide trip, as we're recording this, I sat on one rock pile for 6 hours and we put 50 bass in the boat.
Wow. Wow.
So, and it
When you
was
say the water temp, it depends on water temp. Are you looking for a certain window to where it's starting to then tip over and decrease, or is there like, hey, this at this water temp, this is when I really start looking for them grouping up?
Yeah, so it's the max water temp, and as it seems like our water temp dives in like periods. It's not very like gradual. It'll go from like 74 to 71, and then 71 to like 65 in a week, and then 65 to 58. And then once you hit
Wow.
58, it becomes more gradual
Okay.
until we get like a big cold snap, and they'll go from like 58 to they'll go like 50 to 42 in like a week.
Wow. Wow.
And like there's when you have these little drops, that's when the bite fires. But every time that water drops a little bit, those fish reposition somewhere else, and you have to know where to go to find them on the reposition.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
and
That
that
makes
happens
sense.
when the lake blows. So, if you get a big wind, everything changes in 3 days.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. And that's what's impressive to me is that place, you just can't fish it all the time, right? The
Yeah.
nice part is you have ways to stay in the river. You have protected areas where you can get a guy out, especially on like a multi-day trip, and be like, hey, we're gonna go to the lake one day and then we're gonna do this. Or maybe it's a guy that wants to chase largemouth, right?
Yeah.
You do some of that stuff too.
Yeah.
But it's like you're fighting so many things because you're on a place that you can't just go and fish all the time either.
Exactly. Come, like, if I get a wind day in July, late June, July, I basically tell clients, I'm like, hey, listen, like, we do not have a chance to catch smallmouth today. The choice is we can go to Finger Lake, catch largemouth, and maybe get a couple like random smallies, eat topwater or something moving because they're just rogues, like one random fish here and there. Or we can reschedule to like later in the year. And I've been very fortunate this year. I haven't had to reschedule many trips because the weather has been absolutely incredible. And it seems like when I had an off day, the weather was bad. And then when I had a scheduled trip, the weather was good. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping we can continue that trend because we have a really busy September and October coming up. So
Yeah. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. Your September, October. I mean, why is that? Is that the time, like that next window? Obviously, the spring's phenomenal, but is that the window where you're chasing giants? Like when you say a busy
yeah,
September,
so
October.
September is cool because you just never know when you pull up on a spot where you're going to catch, right? Like, and when I say we know we're going to catch smallmouth, but every spot we pull up on, they start to group up, and they don't group up by size.
Oh,
In September,
really?
they group up in just groups.
In
So, like,
wads.
you can pull up on one giant rock pile that you caught a 5-pounder on yesterday, and like 72 2-pounders. And then the next day you go back, you might catch 3 2-pounders and 17 over 5. Like,
Jeez.
but it's all transition. But it's the time of year because you get those subtle drops, like 3-4 degree water temp drops, that they all just kind of group up. And then once you move later September, early October, they really start to group up by size. So they start to separate again
Okay.
as the water gets into that like low 60, mid 50s. Then all of a
Interesting.
sudden, if you're catching 2-pounders, you need to move because that's not going to get done. All you're going to do is catch twos. You got to go find 4.5 to 6s.
So in the spring, is it that is it the same way? In that in the transition, they are all different sizes, and then I guess early pre-spawn, they're sized up and grouped together, and then they kind of start to mix. Or I mean, that's just such a wild phenomenon to think
Yeah.
about. It's like,
So the spring fishery is kind of crazy because as soon as the ice comes off the lake, if we have ice, all you get the first wave of fish up, and they're always giants, like giant fish shallow. And then what will happen, and when the water hits like 48 degrees, all those big ones just disappear shallow. You have no idea where they go. They just like
Gone.
disappear, and they're replaced with like 10 to 15-inch fish. So you don't even target the shallow water. When the water hits 45 degrees, you go out deep, and it seems like you can't do anything in the relative realm of fishing to catch an under the 3-pounder in the springtime when you're out deep. And if you do, you just move, because it's like, okay, I'm obviously not in the right area if I'm getting a 12-inch fish.
Right. Right. Dude, it's just the Great Lakes are just such a different animal. Like it's its own sub niche in bass fishing. It's its own sub niche in smallmouth bass fishing. Like it's just a completely different own world that you live in.
The hardest thing I need to figure out, and this is the one area that I've yet to really, I have a couple areas dialed, but I don't know where they all winter on my end of the lake. Like
Really?
I know all the fish can't winter in one spot, and
Right.
I know one spot where there'll be like probably 2,000 smallmouth on it in December if you can get out there, and it's just a bloodbath, like
That's
4-pounder after
insane.
4-pounder, and they fight like crap. But I don't know where all these fish winter on my end of the lake. I have ideas, but when that time comes, you can't target them because they're in Canada, so the season's closed. So I want to figure out where more fish winter on my side of the lake, and I know they winter on like hard mud breaks, but
Okay.
there's not a lot of mud. So until I get out to like 60 foot of water.
Interesting. And
So
how are you determining what is mud and what isn't on your 2D?
so
Like what is
that's the best part about Hummingbird is the return on your side scan is so strong
right?
that if you have your settings correctly, like your settings correct, you can tell hard bottom from soft bottom, because it'll be like bright white to
Mhm.
like I think it's palette one. It's like the Hummingbird blue palette.
Yep.
So a shell bed or sand or rock will basically come through as white, and then you'll have shadows wherever you have contour changes, and then the mud, you'll see like where the sand and shell butt up against mud, and it'll be just like this deep ocean blue on the bottom. You're like, oh yep, that's mud or clay or muck, whatever that bottom is,
Gotcha.
soft bottom. And I found the smallmouth, once the water gets below a certain water temp, they'll actually lay in the mud off the hard bottom.
Right. Right.
And they're the hardest fish to catch until you get one to bite, and then they all bite.
That's insane, dude. And can you see those fish on Mega Live that are stuck to the bottom like that, or is
When
it
they're
more?
in mud, when they're in mud and sand, it's kind of hard to see them, because the sand you have riffles, and the mud is the same way because it's always shifting with the current. We have so much current, so there's like little waves in it, so you
Right.
don't see them until they come up to look at your bait a lot of the time. But that's where I use side scan a lot when I'm looking for those fish, because they stand out like sore thumbs,
Got it.
especially in mud. If you come across a school of fish in mud, all of a sudden you'll just be like bright white in the middle of nothing, and they'll all look like little tiny rice grains in 45 to 50 foot of water. And you're like, found them. You spin
Yeah,
around, throw a waypoint on, and you just sit there and cast to them for the next 4 hours and catch every one of them.
that's insane. And so,
Yeah.
on your Hummingbird unit, when you're in that deeper water, something that I've always kind of like, or if you're really looking for bait fish, like I'm thinking later this year, I'll be at the Toyota Series Championship on Table Rock, and I don't know if it's going to be if it starts to cool down, it'll probably just be a scoping thing out in the middle of nowhere, right? But it'll be important to be around the shad. Are you, when you're in that deeper water, are you running, what transducer are you running on your side scan? Are you running like the Mega, there's an 800 one and then like a 455? You know what I'm talking about as far
Yeah.
as
So
frequency?
I don't remember what the exact kilohertz is, but it is on. I have the Mega
You run
SI.
Mega on everything
Yeah,
as well?
Mega on side and down.
Yeah.
And then for 2D, I think it's like 800, 455.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Gotcha.
800. It's
Yeah,
whatever
it's
the
like
most
there's like
sensitive setting is.
yeah, so I don't know. I was talking to Bailey or somebody about this one time, and it was like you want to use the Mega when you're in shallower, and then you go like 800 kind of mid depth, and then you run like the 400 when you're really deep, because or maybe I have that backwards, but no, I think that's the right way. But it was
No,
like
Because the reason why you'd want to go down when you're out deep is you're going to get a better return the deeper the water is on the lower frequency.
Right. That's
Yeah.
exactly how it was explained to me.
And you have to like slow down your charge speed. You want to idle at like 2.5 as opposed to 3.5. So you really got to go slower for it to get a really good reading. But like the lower frequency should give you a better return when you're going slow enough.
Got it. And
Thing.
yeah.
I
But
just use
you're
Mega,
saying
but
you have no problems running Mega out there in the middle of nowhere.
no, I just have to constantly adjust my sensitivity and contrast based on like sunlight conditions, where the sun is, etc., in the sky. Because you can be graphing one way on a contour break. If the sun is in front of you, your settings can be lower, but as you turn around, you might have to turn them up or vice versa. Every day is different. I'm always messing with my contrast.
Yeah. Totally. Makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that that is just something like can make you so much more efficient, and it's so necessary where you are in your part of the country to be really good at that. And it's cool because what's great about where you are is rocks don't move, right? You hear that all the time, but like when you are spending that much time out there and finding stuff, like this is gonna be good for you for your lifetime. Like you're finding stuff that's gonna be, fish are going to change their patterns, but you're like, well, if they're not here, I could go check this rock pile and check this. But like you're out there in the ocean searching forever and ever. So cool to me.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think I'm up to last time I had my boat on Erie, I think I was at 2,900 rock piles on Erie.
Gosh, 2,900.
And there's still like thousands of square miles that I've yet to touch. Like, well, hundreds of square miles, not thousands, but like in my basin, there's so much water that I haven't even like thought about graphing yet or broken down. And I know there's stuff on. I just like I don't have too many free days anymore to go out there when the weather's nice to just idle for 10 hours and look.
Right. And honestly, quite frankly, the way you're catching them, you don't need to right now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like the pattern that I was running in July is a pattern I figured out probably 3 years ago. But I found out like last year I didn't have hummingbird units on my boat. This is my first year running all hummingbird units. And when we were getting ready for a big tournament we won in July in Buffalo, I went out and I regraphed this entire area that I thought I knew really well. And I figured something out there that like blew my mind. And
really,
I'm not really going to dive into too much detail on it because it's like sneaky stuff. Yeah. And if somebody in Buffalo was listening, they would know what to look for. So I'm going to kind of keep that under wraps unless they want to pay me $500 for a guide trip, then I'll show them. But basically what I was like looking for was, and I guess I'll say a little bit of it. I found like channels in certain areas that I never knew were there. And the smallmouth were relating to these channels as opposed to the drops.
Channels in what? Or can you say? Like, are you talking like, okay.
Because as soon as I say it, it's like so obvious that it's ridiculous. But once I found like in the practice, it was like Thursday afternoon was the last day we were going to practice because Friday was a big time blow day right before the tournament. And it blew during the tournament. And we were on like nothing, right? We found some fish on the first day of practice and they left. Thursday morning, they were gone. We're like, well, there goes that plan. And I had to drop my partner off at noon because he had to work. And I'm like, I have 3 hours to figure something out. I'm like, I'm going back to the areas where I think they should be instead of looking for an off the wall thing. And I literally spent 3 hours graphing this area. And about an hour in of graphing, I'm like, that looks funky on my graph. I spin around, go over it. And I'm like, oh my God, there's 100 blops in this little thing I found. So I turn around and I drove right over them, like not even thinking about it. I turn around, spun spot lock like 60 feet off, threw down like those are walleye. They're 100% walleye. Throw it in there. My drop shot's going down. They all came up and then chased it back down. First one I hooked was a 6-pounder.
Holy cow.
And I'm like, all right, that's a big smallmouth. Like, just for shits and giggles, let's throw back in there and see what else is in there. Because it's Thursday. I'm not going to mess them up too bad, right? Next cast, I catch 5. And I'm like, all right, I need to find more of this. I went out and graphed the entire area. I found what I find, I think 16 more areas just like it, and they were all loaded. And
Oh
these,
my
like
gosh.
every one of them. And then in the tournament, it got so rough that we just sat on one the entire time, basically, once we had our fish. And
Yeah.
I was like, I want to go run all these other ones, but they're like 1 mile here, mile and a half there, and 4-footers. It's like we would waste more time running to them. I was like, let's just
Stay
blow
right
the
here.
doors off of this one spot and slowly like move back and forth on it. And I think we caught like 70 bass off of this one
Oh my
spot, and
gosh.
they were all 4-pound plus fish. And then we milked it for like the next 3 weeks and was cracking them for 3 weeks, and now it's empty. So I'm like, now I know what they're doing in the immediate post spawn, and I knew this area was good, but I just
Yeah.
never knew why. And I credit my hummingbirds for it, because when I had my Lawrences, I literally graphed the entire area the same way, and I never noticed what I found.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
Dude, the
this
side
is,
scan's incredible.
it was down, it wasn't even on side scan. I found them on down imaging.
Wow.
Like, you couldn't see what it was on side.
Wow. That's
like,
insane, dude.
like I'll send you. I think I have a picture of it in my phone of what I found when the fish left. I'll send it to you later, just
Okay.
so you see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Dude, that's awesome. That's so fun.
I was
Oh,
like,
that's good stuff. And
yeah,
that's what I love about, I guess, being something that I don't do, just being where I'm at. Like there's just not now more in Idaho, more so it's a little different, but you're at a place and with your business, like you are able to break something down so minute and so detailed. And it's like we see all these tournament series and stuff, and it's really cool to be super versatile and go to a place and break it down quick. But there's also something really cool about becoming an absolute expert on
yeah.
one body of water or a couple bodies of water. And that's what you're really doing.
And I can't even say like I'm truly like an expert yet.
Yeah.
We're trying, because there's so much that we still don't know. And there's a lot of guides in my area that have way more experience on the lake, but they're so busy doing like multi-species stuff that I'm like, I am going to figure out how to make a full-time bass guiding job out
Yeah.
of this. And that's why I added in largemouth trips in July and August, because I wanted to be able to, when the smallmouth bite slows down, I could go out and catch largemouth and
Oh, that's
still
cool.
have a great experience for clients. And it's kind of cool too in that regard, because now I can go out and experiment with largemouth in areas that I was catching them before. And I've learned some stuff on a couple lakes this year that I never knew about. So just like, you know what? We've caught some fish. Let's see if we can go find some giants. Let's go graph for an hour, and I'll show you what I'm like. And then we
Looking
get into
for.
a graphing lesson. Then when we find them and we swim an 8-inch glide bait over their face and a giant eats it, it's like, this was so cool. Like I learned
Oh,
something
wow.
today, and then you learned something. And like that's what we try to base it off of.
Yeah. And someone's learning how you break
Yeah.
things down, right? Like
Yeah.
that's really the benefit of what's going on there. But that's really cool to look at things and say, hey, I'm gonna try and make this just a bass deal. And in August, is it like have you had decent feedback from folks coming up booking a largemouth trip?
No, so like July and August, I try not to get too busy, because I literally burn myself out in the spring chasing bass, right? Like
Right.
I think in April, May, and June, I think I had like 5 off days from a week after my daughter was born.
Jeez.
Like I was on and if I didn't have a guide trip, I was still out trying to figure out where these fish were going, because you'll be out there so much you don't have time to just go look for them. And as I'd be like, oh man, my bite is like disappearing. I need to re-find these fish. Like, well, I can't take a day off tomorrow when a scheduled day off. I need to go out and graph for 10 hours and figure out where these fish have gone. And that has helped a ton. So now I've patterned fish moving west to east, and also back out when they go east to west. And I kind of have I'd say I have like an 85% of an idea of what's going on now. There's
Okay.
still some things I'm missing that I'm like, in the tournament on the Wednesday night, I'm like, where the heck did this guy find all of these giants? I'm only catching 4s. Why is this guy coming in with 3 5.5s?
Yeah.
Like, I figured out how to catch a lot of really good above average fish, but it's figuring out why in June in the immediate post spawn do the big post spawners do what they do, because they always seem to be doing their own thing. And I've got like a couple ideas, but I don't have it fully broken down yet.
Gotcha.
But we can go out and catch 104 pounders. Like that's fun as crap.
That's
Like,
insane, dude. I mean,
yeah,
that's just a blast. And I know one thing that you do that's really cool is you do the biggest smallmouth of the year. Generally
yeah,
wins a prize for somebody, right? So
yeah.
where's that sitting right now?
Right now, the biggest one is my client named Mike. I won't put his last name on here, but he caught a 6.9
Jeez.
on
Still,
Alpha Angler. So this year, Alpha Angler stepped up, right? So we're giving away a rod of whatever the biggest fish of the year was caught on. So if you
so
caught on a
cool.
spy bait finesse rod or a wrench or a DSR, or soon we're gonna be throwing a rig. So if they catch it on like a wide glide, and if we can get like a 610 or bigger in the boat on like a different rod, whoever catches that mega is going to get that rod. Not the rod they use, but a new rod from Alpha
A new
Angler.
one shipped to them.
Yeah, shipped to them.
Cool. That's
So
awesome. That's cool
yeah,
for Alpha Angler to step up like that.
yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, that 6.9 is gonna be hard to beat. And that came on a week that was just unreal in May. I think we put 11 over 6 in the boat in like 4 days.
Jeez.
And it was just incredible. All on the same spot. Like I figured out one pre-spawn area and they were there for 5 days. And it seemed like every time I pulled up there, we would catch one that was 5.5 or bigger.
Jeez. Holy cow.
And the one day I think we caught 18 off of it over 5 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, in like
Dude,
45
these are just
minutes. Every cast.
insane numbers. I mean, where do you feel right now? Where does Erie stand up in the Great Lakes smallmouth debate of all the different lakes? I mean, obviously Ontario we watched today is just stupid, right?
Yeah,
Like,
do you see the Bass Track by any chance?
no,
Our leaderboard. So Chris Johnson had 28, and Bailey didn't believe me in our group chat when I was like, Chris Johnson's got more than 26 pounds, but Brian Smith just dropped 29.5.
oh my gosh. Look at that. Let's
29.5.
freaking go, Bryant.
So Lake Erie is probably, in my opinion, my humble opinion, it's the best Great Lake because we have so many numbers of fish.
Yeah.
But like St. Clair is like you could literally interchange St. Clair and Erie probably for like 2. There is something about Lake Ontario's eastern basin that we just cannot touch
Really?
for like sheer size. Like they just have a surplus of like 6-pounders.
It's insane, dude.
And I think a lot of it is how deep that side of the lake gets
Okay.
that they can kind of disappear and then slide back up. As to where I'm at on Erie and St. Clair, I think my end of Lake Erie, the average depth is like 35 foot.
Okay.
There's not really many places for them to go. In
Just
Ontario, it's more vast. There's so many more areas for those fish to live. Like I guarantee there's so much untapped stuff on Ontario on the Eastern Basin that guys don't even know about that they live because it's so vast. In that area, so to give you a perspective, if you pull up a map from just outside Rochester, there's a bay called like Sodus Bay.
Yep.
You can catch smallmouth consistently from Sodus Bay all the way to the mouth of the St. Lawrence. You can draw like a rectangle, and that entire area has smallmouth in it, and they're all giants.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to look here. So I'm going to pull this up.
So like you can draw a line from Sodus Bay going along the shoreline through like Oswego, Mexico. Then you'll go up to like Sackett, Chameau, Henderson, Black River to the St. Lawrence. And then if you look at Bay of Quinte in Canada, which is where Kyle Welcher is fishing today, like the mouth of the Bay of Quinte, and draw a line and kind of like make a moon shape on Ontario, that entire area is loaded with smallmouth.
One sec here. We've got Sodus Bay pulled up.
Like it is.
Okay. So you're saying
from
literally
Wolcott, from Wolcott, and if you go like 3 miles offshore and you draw a line all the way around here, like by Oswego, Sandy Creek, Adams, Sackett Harbor to the lake, and you come out, so you have like the Galoos and the Ducks, and you come out to Prince Edward, like make a moon, a crescent moon out to Prince Edward. That is all area that smallmouth live on Lake Ontario.
That's insane. So like literally this entire thing.
Yeah.
That is massive. That's what's wild to me is like you look at these places and you don't really know how big they are until you go out there. But like, I mean, what
It's an ocean.
just the main duck, isn't it from here to here 30 something miles?
Yeah.
Like,
And they
think
live
about
off
how
the
much,
main Duck Island. Like they
right,
live out there.
right. Like
Like,
100% they live out there.
yeah.
Like that is just, it is so vast, these places that you guys
Yeah.
you guys
And
have.
then like Lake Erie, right? Like you can basically what we have here is the main fishing areas. You'd have to draw like an arrow. So basically from like where you see that 45-degree bend just
Yep.
out of Buffalo on the
Yep.
Canadian line. So if you take that to Ripley and up to Buffalo, like if you stay within 60 feet of water, you can catch bass. And then from there to Long Point, which is that island sticking out off of here,
Yep.
maybe like a mile or two offshore. That's
Okay.
our fishable water on
So
Erie for
just this
smallmouth.
section,
Yeah.
really. But out here, there's just nothing until
Yeah,
you
it's
until you
300 foot of water.
just
And
until
then
you
from
get
like Erie to Cleveland is just like, I'm sure there's fish in there, but it's basically a wasteland.
I see.
And then once you get to Sandusky to St. Clair, obviously that's another hotbed on Lake Erie.
Right. Wow. Holy cow, dude. Just so much water. It's so cool that you get experience and be out there all the time with that kind of stuff. It's just such a different world, man. Like
It is.
it's the ocean fishing of bass fishing, right? Like it's the offshore fishing.
It's funny that you say that. Like we have gaps to come out into the lake, and we're like, when we round a bend, and I get clients up from like South Carolina and Tennessee. I'm like, now welcome to the ocean. They're like, what do you mean? And we come out and they're like, oh my. Like it just Buffalo opens up so wide that it's like if you're looking a certain direction, all you'll see is water.
Right.
And it's the same way with Ontario. As soon as you get in a certain part, it's just water. All you can see is water. And you're like, all right, this is intimidating.
Dude, gosh, and that's what makes it so crazy is and then fighting waves and that stuff. But like, man, you live in such a world that is so cool to me, and it's awesome to see that you've really built up this guide service over the last couple of years. And I know it's a grind and that kind of a thing, but man, you have just the ability to keep breaking this place down and doing what you love. And I know also raising some kids on the side. You're always busy with that kind of stuff too.
Oh
But
yeah, it's
you're
fun. A
really able
4-year-old and a 4-month-old.
Jeez, that ought to keep your hands full.
It's fun. So actually, here soon I have to go get them from school too, which is always great.
Right. Well, that's the perks of owning your own business and doing what you can do too, though, right?
Yeah.
Being
Oh,
able
for sure.
to go do those kinds of things. I mean, dude, I guess to wrap things up, more than anything, just wanted to have you come on, talk a little about the guide service. I know this kind of turned into a deep dive on Lake Erie and how you fish and stuff, which is honestly a nice, a pleasant surprise for me. Sometimes I feel like on Business from the Bass Boat, because we have the Serious Angler Show and Lure Lab so fishing based that I feel like I got to stay away from that stuff, but I miss it. You know what I mean? Like I miss talking about that stuff. So I need to figure out a way to incorporate
No,
more.
but I mean, like a good segue there, right? Like, is when you come out with me on a guide trip, that's what we're doing. Is like there are days that I have clients that are like, I just want to learn how to break down such a vast body of water and how do you graph out here? How do you set up the boat? And that's where I differentiate my guide businesses. I'm not I'm going to go sit here and we're going to float 3 miles to here and drag baits and we're going to catch fish every once in a while. Like I try to put us in the most high percentage areas possible to get not only numbers of fish, but the biggest fish because they're the least obvious pieces of structure. But once you find them, they're the most obvious for the big ones to live on.
Got it.
And that's what we try to do. Like there's been plenty of guide trips in the summertime. I'm like, all right, what we're doing now isn't working. Let's go sit down for 40 minutes. Let's go graph and see if we can find something different.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times that saved my day by going like running a contour line that you're like, oh, there's nothing there. And all of a sudden it's like, it's off of a main break there's going to be something here, and then we find like the mother load of fish.
That's so cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the learning side of it to me is the fun part. And I think that clients really appreciate that. And that's becoming its own niche guide service in itself, or graphing lessons and learning how to do that kind of stuff, right? Of like the actual learning process of breaking that stuff down. They don't want to just go and catch fish, right? Like if there's someone like myself or a tournament angler somewhere else, like you can do that. It's you want to learn how to be better.
Don't get me wrong, catching fish is fun. And we ultimately catch fish, but like there's guides out there like, yeah, we're going to catch 60, 80, 90 fish a day. I'll be straight up. There's a lot of days we don't do that because we're trying to target bigger than average fish.
Right.
So we're going for quality as opposed to quantity.
Right. Right. Awesome. Well, dude, that's a great way, I think, to wrap things up. I know we've had you on to talk about your biggest fish for sure, probably in the past, as far as largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass. Any updates there?
No.
Okay. In there.
Unfortunately,
what's the biggest weighed on since you started the guide business, you or a guide client? What's the biggest fish or a friend that's been weighed on your boat?
Unfortunately, it was Bailey this past spring when we had Sean on the boat from X2. Yeah, he caught a 615 on my boat with Sean. It was just ungodly fish. Like
that is a freak.
Massive, yeah. But I've seen I've had a 7 on my boat before I started guiding.
Okay.
So like I've seen some ungodly giant smallmouth.
Some real big nasty things. That's fun, dude. Oh, awesome. Well, dude, for anyone who is under a rock with our whole platform here, obviously you've heard Andy on Serious Angler, you've heard Andy on Lure Lab, but
it's
just
a unique voice. It's hard to miss.
Right. Just for anyone who is interested in actually booking a trip, is the best way to message you on Instagram? Or what's
Instagram or email me. Go to my website. My website has all that contact information on it. You can, if you look hard enough, you could probably find my phone number. So
right. Yeah, it's all in the description, guys, as far as Andy's guide service and all that on all our YouTube channels. So
yeah, and right now we're booking out next year because I am basically full for September and October. So
2024.
Yep. And May is almost full in 2024, and same with June. So dates are going fast.
Got it. Well, get on it, folks. And Andy, thanks for sitting down, man. You and I don't get to just chat very often. So
this is nice. It was a nice change of pace.
Right. Totally, man. So enjoy the rest of your day. Have fun with the kids. Buddy. And thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. We'll chat soon.
All right. We'll see you later.
Bye now.